Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Inside the OC, the podcast dedicated entirely to the Usbc Open Championships. And today, an awesome show. This is one where we just get to sit back and talk bowling and talk Open Championships with some experts, along with, of course, my co-host, once again, an expert in his own right. Let's bring him into the show right now, Aaron Smith, and let's get going today. We've got a lot of guests and a lot to talk about. Aaron, how are you today?
Doing great, Mr. Cannizzaro. Excited for another edition here. And obviously the OC Bracket Challenge coming to an end. We're going to announce the winner here on the show today. So I know you put a lot of time, effort, love into this project. So, yeah, I'm ready to see the final results. And, of course, get to talk to our group of expert panelists on some of their choices throughout the course of the competition.
All right. Well, for those who don't know, the intention of the OC Bracket Challenge was to not only celebrate the amazing history of the Open Championships, which dates back all the way to 1901, but also to get folks talking about the tournament, get them excited for what we hoped was going to be the September start to the 2020 event. Of course, we found out last week that's not going to happen, unfortunately. So now we'll look ahead toward 2021 and wait and see who else might be adding their names to the list of contenders for the Bracket Challenge. But the premise was quite simple. We took some time and thought about all of the years, nearly 120 years of competition, and we took 32 of the top moments, people, performances, records, you name it, and we put them all together. We divided the 32 contender bracket into 4 quadrants, one of which included some record moments, and then we had participation and history milestones type contenders, and then some tournament first. So the first time that things happened at the event, and our final one was some awesome head-to-head matches where we took some of the greatest bowlers in tournament history and put them head-to-head. And of course, each quadrant then had a winner as we whittled it down from 32 to 16 down to 8 and 4. So we'll celebrate each of those winners a little bit too along the way. And then those 4 semifinalists, of course, went for the overall championship. And then we had our title match determined last weekend. And then we put the vote out yesterday to see who or what would be the overall winner in the OC Bracket Challenge. That's going to be pretty awesome to talk about as well. And, of course, arguably the most significant person or event in Open Championships history, I guess, if you want to get technical. But I want to introduce our guest for today's show. It's not just going to be me and Aaron talking about the Open Championships, which would be pretty awesome. But these folks are way, way better than us and way more knowledgeable about the sport. The first one we're going to talk to today is Dwayne Hagen, the Open Championships tournament director since 2008. He has lived many of these moments, and prior to coming on board, he was an Open Championships participant and a big fan, historian as well. We'll follow that up with Bob Johnson from Bowlers Journal International, dozens and dozens of bowling writing awards and many years in the sport, a Hall of Famer. And we're going to hear from him and his thoughts. And then we'll hear from Fran Piraino from the Syracuse area, a historian in that area of the country, also worked with us at the 2018 Open Championship, so very knowledgeable about the sport and the event.
And she survived to tell about it, too.
Hey, she worked with us and she survived, so that's fantastic. And she still likes us, which is even better, I think. We'll find out for sure.
We'll find out.
And then our final guest today will be Bob Hart, the USBC Hall of Famer, 64 Open Championships appearances, looking for number 65, right around the corner in 2021. And the one guy who will not be able to join us today, Doug Shellum, very, very knowledgeable young man from Minnesota, knows just about everything about bowling in that area as well as the Open Championships. He had some great insight along the way. We asked all of these special guests to join us each week, each match, to tell us their thoughts, to pick a winner in each of the matches, starting from the very first round, and tell us why they chose the way that they did. So we'll hear from them about those choices today. We're going to break it up, and we're going to give each one of them one of the quadrants to talk about. But first, we're going to bring in, again, Tournament Director Dwayne Hagen to talk about the project and his experiences at the Open Championships. Welcome, Dwayne. We're glad to have you back here on the Inside the OC. How are things where you are?
Doing great.
All right. Well, last time we talked, we were talking about the 2020 event and all of the hopeful things that we had in mind. And now we've turned our attention to 2021. But right now we're going to celebrate nearly 120 years of Open Championships history. And we just want to hear your thoughts. I know when we asked you to come and be part of this project, you were very excited to look back and celebrate some of the things not only that you experienced personally, but maybe that were some of the things that helped you determine that this is what you wanted to do with your career. Tell us about that and kind of your passion for the Open Championships and what you thought going into this and how hard the decisions might have been.
Yeah, actually, it was really exciting, very interesting to look at the matchups each week because a lot of them involved like an incident or a year where some of them involved history and some of them involved things that became a permanent part of the Open Championships experience for not just an individual, but for all the participants. So kind of balancing and weighing all those was really kind of a tussle each week in many of the matchups. But it's what made it really interesting.
Oh, we're not going to make you talk about any one section in particular or be an expert on any, but the whole thing in general and some of the key moments, again, record moments, party and milestones, tournament first and head-to-head matches. Of all the things that you've seen and experienced and saw on this bracket, are there any matches that you found particularly difficult or particularly easy to go ahead and determine?
Well, I think I ended up most of the time siding on the with those things that became a part of the Open Championships for sort of Joe Bowler, if you will, So a lot of times when there was something like the center aisle march out, for instance, I often went with that because it's something that all the bowlers experience. It's something that all the bowlers carry away. I mean, I still remember my first one in Niagara Falls, when that first march out, it just was just amazing. And then my first time at the stadium was amazing. And every time it's sort of still amazing. And so that's something that you really had to, I really weighed heavily. And then a lot of times I looked at those things that maybe are untouchable. Like, is there an untouchable moment in the history or in the accomplishment? And I weighed those very, very heavily as far as making a lot of the decisions.
Well, of course, we'll get into each one and what those matchups were here as we get into each quadrant. It was really tough just to narrow down to 32, really. I chatted with Aaron quite a bit about it, just trying to find those moments. In almost 120 years, this easily could have been 64 or 512, like a super bracket Open Championships. I mean, that's how much, how many awesome things have happened out there. So to narrow it down was pretty tough. And I'll admit there were some surprises along the way. I thought for sure, for example, that the fact that OC has never been in a traditional bowling center is what makes the Open Championships what it is. That's like the main thing about the event is the venue. I thought for sure that the decision to do that, to build a venue from the very first year was going to be a top contender all the way through. So that one absolutely surprised me. Any thoughts there, Aaron, Dwayne?
Well, I don't remember what that matchup was, but I think I voted for that one maybe a time or two. But at some point it must have run up against a bigger foe. I don't remember what foe that was for me, but I don't know.
Yeah, early in the bracket, that vote did go up against center aisle. So for the traditionalists, there's an opportunity to pick between two of the greatest things about the event. Center aisle did advance at that point. So
yeah, and that probably would have been my choice for sure. Yeah.
You can't be mad at that as you described what center aisle means. Aaron, thoughts?
I ended up in the same bracket for that essentially. I agree 100% with Dwayne. That or both you guys on the 1901 vote getting beat up by center aisle. I was a little surprised by that one, but that next matchup, the pinfall record versus center aisle, I was surprised to see center aisle come out on top of that one. Certainly, as that moment very, very close to all three of us, all being there when Bill broke the record in 2015. That's why I'm wearing this shirt today too. But it's I was a little surprised by that one, but I can certainly understand why Center Isle was so revered and made it to the Final Four, just because that is something, just so deep in the history of this event that and it's something that people look forward to every year. So I'm sure it has a more personal feeling for a lot of folks than the pinfall. So I could understand that too.
Well, for those who are less familiar with the OC Bracket Challenge, all the details can be found on bowl.com. That's bowl.com/openchamp. And we had some pretty good discussion along the way, I think. Each time we posted, you could tell some of the things got a little bit more traction. There was some fire, some passion, even maybe not an argument along the way about the relevance of some of the people and the records and such. But more than anything, there was discussion happening about the OC for about 6 weeks. And that was pretty awesome. You can follow all that on the OC Facebook page as well. Look back, see all the graphics, see what the matchups were, and what the folks were thinking along the way. But more than anything, I think it was a lot of fun just to relive these moments. I'll admit that I could probably speak pretty freely on most of them without having to look it up. But this is what I live and breathe, really, the Open Championships. And, and for others, it was a learning opportunity along the way as well. Dwayne, did you learn anything that you didn't maybe know about the event prior to looking at these 32 matchups or 32 contenders?
I think that some of the things amazed me, like when I got into the detail a little bit more, because I would research the detail in order to make a decision. Like, for example, with Pollard's record, I knew that Pollard's had the record there, but I didn't realize just how closely each individual had performed, how consistently they performed, how every guy contributed almost equally. And so that really allowed me to push them forward, like in a lot of my votes, just because I thought, holy crap, they all bowled within like 50 pins of each other over 9 games. That's just amazing, So some of those kind of details that as I dove into trying to make the decision were the most enlightening things for me.
Well, I think also that in setting this up, we didn't make it entirely easy. Of course, we live these things at the event. We know many of the people involved in these things, so it's sometimes a little bit tougher to kind of take the personal side out of it. You're voting against a friend here or something there that really you respect, and to really put it in perspective and be able to just take it for what it is. One awesome score or an awesome person, and try to just really logically think it through. Aaron, any thoughts there? Again, we've lived it for now over a decade for you. And seeing these things happen, you remember being in those moments. I think that was the hardest part too, is the emotion of being in that moment. You mentioned Bill Lillard breaking the pinfall record, and like you can feel it, like it's happening still. But to potentially have to choose just based on the relevance of something over that moment and what you felt emotionally at the time.
Yeah, that's a great point, Matt. And we've been pretty fortunate to be a part of quite a few of the moments on this list. But yeah, it's there's certainly a special connection to, being part of those moments. We'll talk about Lillard a lot today. But that moment still, for me personally, is the best moment of my career, hands down, being able to be part of that. And, so for me, it would always be tough to, just knowing the hairs would be sticking up on my arms. I get goosebumps thinking about that moment, and being part of it would potentially blind my vision a little bit to want to vote for Bill. But it's pretty cool that we've been able to live so many of these moments too.
Now, Dwayne and everybody who's watching out there, when it came down to it, our final 4 contenders in the records moment, the winner in that category was the 23-26 rolled by Matt Mcneil in 2010. You see Aaron Smith with the records banner right behind him. We do also celebrate history here at the house too, but 23-26 for Mcneil, and there it is on the screen. Center Isle coming through in the participation and milestones quadrant. And over in the tournament first, it was the first bowler with 3 800s. Also, Matt Mcneil just happens to be, but again, you're separating the personal from the accomplishment itself, if possible. And finally, in the head-to-head section was Bill Lillard Sr., Many would argue the greatest bowler in Open Championships history just based on his stats alone. We will see. It came down to the final match. Amazingly, maybe not amazingly, Matt Mcneil's 23-26 beating out center aisle as far as significance in Open Championships history. I'll admit that one shocked me a little bit. The record number, awesome that day, was incredible. Is that number more significant than center aisle? I wonder. And then in our other semifinal matchup, again, Lillard and the first 3 800s, Lillard advances. So it's Lillard against 23-26 in the final. And then we'll have the final results later on in today's show. But Dwayne, in those final 4 contenders, any surprises there for you? And then as far as who advanced or what advanced to the final, any thoughts?
Well, I to be honest, I'm kind of glad that Mcneil's 23-26 made it through, because if I'd had to make a decision between center aisle and Lillard, that would have been a really difficult one for me. So it made it a little easier for me to go with my choice of Lillard in that particular instance, because I just felt the overall body of work and the all-time pinfall record, of course, was the winner. But if it had been Lillard versus center aisle, I would have really been torn, because I would have had that incredible tussle of something that it impacts all 50,000 bowlers who attend versus Lillard's accomplishments. So, that was a surprise to me, and in a way, glad I didn't have to make that choice, sort of.
Oh, definitely a center aisle Bill Lillard matchup would have made sense, of course, if we're trying to determine the most significant things and people in the history of the event. 23-26, currently a record, an amazing performance, as we said. Is Matt Mcneil ready to be in that discussion with Bill Lillard as the greatest of all time? We'll certainly have that talk along the way today. And for Mcneil, just 13 years into his OC career, whereas Lillard had 68 consecutive years and 8 Eagles. So Mcneil has about 5.5 decades to go, perhaps, before we have that talk. I don't know that we'll be sitting in these chairs in 55 years to have that conversation, but certainly we'll pass that information down. And Aaron, any thoughts about our semifinalists and our finalists before we let Dwayne go and move on to our other experts?
I really like the matchups, to be honest, and I feel our championship match definitely makes sense. As I just mentioned about Bill, he's kind of 1A in my book for everything Open Championships, outside of you, of course, Matt. But I think a lot of folks think about their own experiences when they go to the Open Championships, and I'll put my scores out there on blast. I've typical year is probably like 1650 to 1750. So when I think about 23-26, like that's a whole other like really well bowled set for me to get there. So I'd have to bowl 4 sets and bowl all of them somewhat decently to do what he did in 3. So I think that's part of the allure of that score as well. So I think in the end, you definitely can't argue against our finalists.
Again, start to finish, this was a lot of fun, learning for everybody involved. Absolutely, we appreciate all the hard work of our experts, Dwayne included there, just digging into each match, coming up with some great thoughts and reasons on why those decisions were made. Dwayne, before we roll on here, any final thoughts? I know you're now making the transition from 2020 to 2021, getting ready for what's coming up. But any final thoughts before we let you go?
Other than I hope that everybody who is going to achieve milestones and have an opportunity to achieve great things in 2020 will be there to do that in 2021. Because I know there were some on the horizon, like you mentioned, Bob Hart, 65 years. I know there were some people coming back to defend some titles, some first-time champions. Like Jenny Wonders, or like the guy, like Jay Stratton, who's a first-time bowler and then becomes an Eagle winner and coming back. I just hope all these people can come back and achieve the, work towards becoming a part of this conversation down the road. So.
All right. Well, great thoughts there. Great thoughts along the way, Dwayne. We appreciate it. Stay safe out there. We'll be talking soon about getting ready for 2021. Feel free to stand by, watch the rest of the show, and hear some great thoughts from people who really do know what they're talking about. Folks, Dwayne Hagen, OC Tournament Director.
All right. Thanks for having me on. I'm definitely going to stay on, guys.
All right. Thanks, Dwayne. And now we will get ready to move on to the record moments section of the bracket. That was a tough one, Aaron. Of course, we've had a lot of great numbers and records at the event. To pick just 8 contenders for this, pretty challenging. But we're going to bring in, again, from Bowlers Journal International, longtime bowling writer, it's going to be Hall of Famer Bob Johnson to give us his thoughts as we roll through this bracket.
Hey, guys.
Bob, how are you today, sir?
I'm doing great. So long time means old. Is that kind of what you're getting at there?
Experienced.
Oh, experienced. Okay. I think that means old too, but
all right. Well, we appreciate all of your hard work and thoughts again. And a lot of these moments you either covered or edited for the fine staff at Bowlers Journal. So I know you're pretty familiar and perhaps had some different insight maybe than the rest of us might have had on certain things. But overall, tell us about your experience with the 2020 OC Bracket Challenge.
Oh, well, it was a lot of fun, and to do it right, it was a lot of work, and that was cool. But before I get into that, I'd like to make just a couple of points. One is, I've been around so long, if I manage to get through this without calling the tournament the ABC at least once, that'll be a win. And I probably won't call it the OC either, because I grew up in Orange County, California, and I don't call that the OC either. And I also have to tell you guys, I was a little disappointed that my Outstanding Performance Award from the 2019 Open Championships wasn't part of the bracket, but maybe next time. But seriously, it was a lot of fun to go through this, and you did a ton of work putting it all together. And I can't imagine how difficult it was to get it down just to the 64 that you did.
Well, I'm actually pretty jealous of that award as well, Bob. Not that all of your writing success that we talked about earlier doesn't make me a little bit jealous too, but that one right there, I thought I had one at the 2019 event, and I got it, and I was celebrating and found out that in fact Dwayne had changed the scores at some point and made it higher. So I was about 16 pins short. So I had to walk back over and give the award back. So now there's.
Hey, maybe I got yours.
It's possible, but enjoy that. Certainly celebrate that. And again, thank you for your participation in the event. We had some fun with you when we saw you on the lane. So always great. Win or lose, it's an experience, and that's the important thing.
And I would like to say this to Dwayne, since he's hanging out. People should know that he really is appreciated, even though he may not get to hear it all that often. My brother bowled in his 40th tournament last year, and just the things they do for the bowlers who have had a lot of participation in the tournament, they go out of their way to make them feel special. And I think Terry, I don't know how many plaques he would have now for participation, but all of them are displayed proudly at his home, along with his 300 rings, which kind of ticked me off a little bit, but that's another story. But he's very proud of them. He'll be coming back for more. And Dwayne should know that everything that you folks do to make that tournament special is appreciated.
Thank you for the kind words, Bob, and for sharing, of course, about the family legacy at the Open Championships. And awesome. Those are the kind of stories that make what we do so enjoyable. And those are the folks, the every year guys who come out, and they may not be the lead takers, but they certainly are equally special. And it's great to be able to tell their stories as well. So thank you. And
Absolutely.
now let's get to it. Let's dive in the record moments of this bracket. And again, we're choosing 8 moments, and there we have it. Artistic Expressions won the highest team total in tournament history, 37-20 back in 2014, going against Turbo Grips. Turbo Grips had 13-18 in 2014 as well for a single team game, highest in history. Both of those records still standing. And then our next match was Bo Gergen, 862 in 2009, and Matt Mcneil's, of course, 23-26 all events total in 2010. And the other half of the bracket, Ron Vokes, 23-21 was the first bowler to reach the 2,300 mark in 2009. Mcneil edged him for that record again a year later. So just some wacky things happened those couple of years, and on the same exact day in the calendar, which is was just pretty wild. Vokes against Brenda Padilla, who is part of the doubles record at the event, 1566. She went on to shoot 300 and 785 in the singles event that same day, and has the highest all events total by a woman at the OC, 2132. And then finally, our final match. This one, I think, Aaron, was one of the most controversial that we had. Lodge Lanes 2 broke the 20-year-old team record in 2013 by a single pin. 35-38 was the number. And then Pollard's Bowl, now the longest standing record at the Open Championships, 10,425 back in 1996. If you talk to the original Lodge Lanes crew, they won team all events back-to-back in 97 and 98. Came 4 pins shy of breaking that record. Some good conversation about who the better team was there overall, whether Lodge Lanes, the original, should be in the conversation as well. And again, tough to choose between a 3-game performance and, of course, the 9-game record. But wow, definitely some good discussion right off the bat in the record moments. Aaron, any thoughts there before we let Bob share what he thought about these 8 contenders?
I'm just hoping John Gaines is taking your phone calls again, man. No, it's that had to be tough. It's pretty crazy to think, just looking at the bracket, that the highest 3-game series didn't make it out of the first round, but when it's against the highest 9-game series, that's a pretty tough draw. And I don't recall the numbers on this one, but I'm sure the Mcneil versus Pollard's Bowl match is probably one of the closest ones we've had throughout the entire bracket. And I can certainly see why Dwayne kind of alluded to some of the facts about that great team from 96 and how consistent they were to get to the record. And then obviously Mcneil just going crazy and shooting 23, 26. Had to be tough. Yeah, that certainly could go either way. But yeah, a ton of great performances. And apparently it was very good to bowl in 2009.
It was an interesting year. The longest event in history at 154 days. Second most teams, just shy by 85 teams, so 17,200. So a lot of opportunity there. Some great performances, of course. Bob, 7 of those records. 6 still standing in our record books now. Some tough choices along the way for sure. What are your thoughts? And any of them really kind of throw you along the way?
Oh, pretty much every one of them. Comparing team versus individual, comparing series versus game, all of that stuff is very difficult. I kind of lined up my notes, my cheat sheets here in order by the way the bracket went, and my first pick in that first round, I picked Artistic Expression over Turbo, mainly because it was a series versus a game. But, how do you vote against a 13-18 game? I mean, come on. That's a number that just doesn't happen. It happens occasionally on a house shot. It doesn't happen at the Open Championships. And so then you multiply that by 3. You don't necessarily get to 37-20, but 37-20 is a pretty darn good score. So in that scenario, I voted for the series over the game. But yeah, that could have gone either way.
Well, I'll be honest. I was on the pair for that game, the 13-18. I didn't know it was happening either. So there you go. They snuck it in there. The highest game in history, and I was totally oblivious to what was happening around me. So I just thought I'd throw that in there for just no reason, but to see Aaron laugh at remembering that night at the OC.
They didn't enjoy that very much.
Oh, that had to be something to actually be there.
So,
yeah.
Well, right now, going on to our next match, Bo Gergen, Matt Mcneil.
Yeah. Again, I kind of went with more games over fewer games, and Bo 862 again. How do you vote against that? Well, I did. 23-26 for 9 games. I remember going to my early and at that time it was the ABC tournament. You know, if you got to 1800, you were doing really, really good. And now we're talking 500 and change over that. Come on, that's like Aaron was saying earlier. That's another set. You know, you almost need another. You certainly need 2 games if you're doing really well, and with me, you might need 3 games to get that extra pinfall. So I went with Matt on that one.
All right, very, very tough choices and very very logical in really sorting it out. But going on, the next one, maybe a little more comparable or similar situation for you if you're looking at the doubles part compared to the all events part.
Well, I'm not normally accused of logic, so so which one? What names are we dealing with here, please?
Going down to Vokes and Padilla.
Okay, yeah.
At the time, all events records individually, but also Brenda with the double record at that point with the doubles 1566 as well.
Right, absolutely. Well, I think that was probably the top one of all for me. They were comparable in the sense that there wasn't a whole lot of spare shooting going on. And of course, when you're talking records, you're not going to be talking about spares very much. But Brenda rolled a lot of strikes in doubles and singles. But Vokes, he was the first one to go over 2,300. And I think as you look back at bowling history, you're more inclined to be the most impressed with the first. So 2,300 was just, I think that was a number nobody thought anybody would ever get to in this tournament. But he did it. And so while Brenda set some women's records in the tournament, my feeling was it is the Open Championships, and I had to give Ron the nod on this one, but by about that much.
All right, well, good thoughts again. And as we rolled on, I think we kind of had a feeling just based on the following that Pollard's Bowl was going to have some success in this bracket. And then Matt Mcneil has quite a following as well. And rightfully so. The things he's done in the past decade are phenomenal. Again, that 23-26 number up against the 37-20 and a 5-player experience. And he gets by. The Pollard's Bowl Mcneil matchup, I thought that one was going to be pretty interesting again. You got kind of 2 demographics. You got the more experienced, the classic guys, the Pollard's Bowl, the Facebook demographic, as we sometimes see, and then Mcneil, the younger guy in the argument. Some folks, a more recognizable face. He's current right now, and so that one came right down to it. Any thoughts there? And are you surprised with how that one turned out?
Well, of course, early on, I had to pick Pollard's over Lodge Lanes, and that was no picnic. And on that one, I have to throw in the fact that there was some personal things I had to deal with in that one. With Pollard's, one of the guys on the team is Bill Spigner, who is a regular instructional columnist for Bowler's Journal when we have the pages available in a non-pandemic world. And on Lodge, you had Vern Peterson, who writes the No Holes Barred ball review column for Bowler's Journal. So I couldn't play favorites either way. But in that matchup, I did pick Pollard's, and in the Mcneil Pollard's matchup, I did go with Pollard's again. Simply from a historic standpoint, their record has stood for almost a quarter of a century. And that is saying something, especially for a team mark. And for me, although you have singles, doubles, all the events, team event is always the most important for me, especially in this tournament. And Pollard's got my vote in that scenario.
All right, and as we saw Mcneil able to sneak past Pollard's, and that was the closest, I think, of all of our votes almost. Perhaps there was a center aisle one in there at some point that was probably a tie if I remember correctly. But Mcneil passed Pollard's. Again, 2 generations having a vote off there. And then Mcneil going up against Center Isle in the semifinals, and then making it past again. That one, a little bit of a surprise for me, just being the historic side of things. Any thoughts there before we let you go and get back to editing all the fine things we get to read each month?
Center Isle was a big deal when I first started bowling the tournament back in the day. I remember my first tournament, and I remember actually being nervous about walking down the aisle. I have no idea why I was. I think it was just because I had heard about the tradition of the tournament. And of course, I love history. I love bowling history. Now I was going to get to be a part of it in a very small way. And I was nervous. But as you know, as the tournament has now going to be held at South Point quite regularly, and there actually is no center aisle, I think that's going to become less and less important. Excuse me while I adjust this. There, I have a big head, sorry. I think historically center aisle would always get my vote. But moving forward and in the great scheme of things now, it's going to sort of diminish a little bit. So Mcneil.
All right. Well, we're getting close to it. We're going to announce the winner coming up later on in the show. I have 2 final questions for you before you go. The first one, again, the final match was 23-26, the record score against Bill Lillard and the amazing career that he had. Tell us who you had in that final and why, and then we'll let you go with the one final question after that.
Oh, okay. I was going to say that sounded like one question, but we'll get to number 2. No, I voted for Bill Lillard for pretty much the same reason I voted for several of the other folks or things that I voted for. Bill had a lifetime record in the tournament that not only was about longevity, but it was about excellence. Now I'm going to quiz you guys. Uh-oh. Sorry, I should have kind of let you know I was going to do. What's his lifetime average? What was his lifetime average in the tournament?
It was going to end up just under 200, and I can tell you that because he averaged 200 for his first 60 years. And many guys would have quit at that moment and call it a day. 60 years at 200, wow. But Bill, being the ambassador and the competitor he was, and the fact that his family was pushing him along to break that pinfall record, he kept at it. Did fall below in those early 60 years, but to be above 195 for 68 consecutive years, wow, unbelievable.
Yeah, exactly right. And so you combine longevity with performance. I guess you shouldn't vote for a guy because he's a really nice guy, but I probably factored that in too.
So, well, we certainly appreciate the diplomatic decision making along the way and some great thoughts. And again, we'll continue to read all the great things, hopefully coming through the email box soon, and some more things to hang up on the wall here behind me as well. All those autographed bowlers journals that we have on the top area. But anyway, now that you've had this OC bracket challenge experience, I know you probably knew, again, a lot of these things. You experienced them, you read about them. Anything surprise you or impress you or stand out, or did you learn anything along the way that kind of just you really enjoyed or didn't even consider?
No, just kidding. No, I don't know if I learned anything necessarily because, like, as you said, I've been covering the tournament forever. So what it did do is it brought back a lot of great memories, things that kind of had been out of sight, out of mind for a long time. And I think it's important for bowlers today to have an appreciation for the tournament's history. And what this bracket challenge did was bring a lot of that history to life. And it made you think about what happened back then, how you could compare it to what's happening today. And bowling has a long and storied history, and the Open Championships is a big part of it. And I think that's the greatest value that this endeavor brought. Plus, it kept you guys busy because let's be honest, what else were you going to be doing during this time, right?
That's very true. Certainly, that's part of it.
So, hey, I really appreciate being on. I do have to get back to some proofreading. I will be looking. I can check it out on Facebook tonight, right? YouTube.
Yep. It will live on in cyber world, of course. Facebook, YouTube, and Bowl TV, and maybe even we'll see a link to it in the cyber report this week. Of course, celebrating the OC Bracket Challenge and Bob Johnson and all of his hard work.
We'll get it out there next week because this week's cyber is already out the door, but next week for sure.
All right. Bob Johnson, Bowlers Journal International. We appreciate all of the hard work along the way. And thank you for joining us on today's show as well and all the great insight.
Hey, you guys know I really appreciate you too. So thanks a lot, and we'll see you down the road.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Everybody.
Bye.
Aaron Smith, how about that? Such a great discussion, and I think Bob, all the experts really opened my eyes along the way to some things and their reasoning, and I really appreciated seeing some different viewpoints during this challenge.
Absolutely, and Bob's he's a Hall of Famer for a very good reason, one of the great guys out there. So I definitely was looking forward to hear him break down a few things. The one thing I wish he would have gotten into was who was it easier to edit at Bowlers Journal? Is it Bill or is it Vernon? If that went into his selection at all, but no, that was awesome. Bill's always great. Always love to see him out in Vegas. So definitely can't wait for the next time for that. But I'm also ready to move on to the next round of the bracket. Absolutely,
and another, again, as we say, a very special guest. And this one, I'm gonna let you introduce her. I met her back in 2011. Fortunate that was the year that you decided that there was something better than working at Usbc and the Open and Women's Championships. I was able to meet her at the Women's Championships in Syracuse that year. Turned out pretty good for me overall. And then you decided right after that you needed to come back into the fold. And then we got to work with her in 2018. So, Aaron Smith, how about the next introduction?
All right. Thank you, Mr. Cannizzaro. And yes, you are welcome for the opportunity I gave you in 2011 to enjoy both tournaments so much. But I'm going to introduce her the best way I know how. It's through the ice cream tour, which is my favorite part of Twitter. So hashtag Franny P ice cream tour. Here today. Hi, Fran. How are you?
Thank you for having me, both of you. I've lived to tell the story of working with both of you.
Well, we're glad to have you.
Yes, and a special hello to Brandy and Jasmine, who are, I think, going to get their sainthood papers very soon for putting up with the two of you, not only for work, but personally as well. So that's kind of fun to know what they're up to as well.
Well, we get to follow you on social media as well. And Aaron already mentioned the ice cream tours, and you were a welcoming tour guide in Syracuse in 2018. Showing us all the hot spots, and also on site as part of the PR team. We kind of dubbed you the managing director of longevity, which meant that you corralled all the longtime bowlers for us and organized things for the ceremonies and the 50-year guys coming up next year and such. So you got a chance to hear some of their great stories along the way. And then we're going to talk about in your segment of today's podcast, not only the tournament first section, which included, I know you had some thoughts there, included some women along the way, which is something that you're obviously very passionate about. And then those participation milestones as well. Aaron Smith, let's get to it.
All right. Which one do we want to do here, Mr. Cannizzaro?
Surprise me.
Surprise you.
Surprise Fran as well.
Let's do participation in milestones first. Let's take care of that.
Still bossing us around 2 years later.
Got that right.
All right.
Somebody's got to run the show.
Participation and milestones. 8 great choices again. A little interesting combining the two into this section. Participation, 71 years. That was kind of the thing, was that we were trying to celebrate longevity and the dedication of the bowlers there. But at the same time, the performance side of it with participation versus pinfall, which is more impressive, being there for 71 years or knocking down 124,087 pins. Next one, automatic pin setters and automatic scoring, 2 huge innovations in the sport and at the Open Championships. Turning points, I think, but which one the bigger turning point for the event? Down to center aisle and Joe Bowler. Without center aisle, is there a Joe Bowler? There was for 3 years. In 1951 was when Joe Bowler came about, 1954 for center aisle. Now, kind of one and the same, and to choose between, again, which one is more special to the tradition of the Open Championships. And finally, the National Bowling Stadium, the Taj Mahal of 10 pins, gave us a home away from home starting in 1995, a venue that many describe as the most grander place that you could ever participate. And then going back to that vote in 1901 to never put the Open Championships in a traditional bowling center. They built the lanes the very first year, a tradition that has lasted now more than 115 years. Wow, what a bracket. What a section of history here. This one really took you back. Fran, any initial thoughts on these 8 contenders?
You guys really did a lot of digging to come up with these seedings, quote unquote, and to just kind of make it balanced regarding participation in milestones. Just all of them are great. I kind of was a little surprised that participation got bumped out in the first round. Just the longevity of being able to do that and all the factors that are involved in that, you have to have good health, good luck and all that. And I know a lot of the bowlers that I met when I did all those milestone awards and stuff, that was their thing, that they just wanted to keep going because it meant so much to them, these participation milestones. But Lillard makes sense, having him go all the way. The big head scratcher to me was center aisle. Maybe I guess it's a good indication and shows just how meaningful that is to all these Open Championship bowlers. Like I said in my voting, this is their moment because the majority of them are not going to get the 300 or the 800 or get interviewed by you guys unless they are, fighting for a lead. So that is their moment, waving to their family in the stands. And so I guess I get that. I get why center aisle is the one that moved on to the end. The 1901 vote, that kind of surprised me a little bit because they went head to head. I went with 1901 because I thought that was super significant. But like I said, for center aisle to get to the finals, and after hearing Dwayne talk about it, it's very sentimental to a lot of these bowlers. So that makes sense.
Well, now outside of keeping us in line in 2018, in your real life, as much about Syracuse and the bowling world as we do about the Open Championships, and then you got to see them kind of collide for that year and see the history, and then of course last year having a Syracuse area team win team all events, mental produce. You were right there every step of the way, tallying the scores with us, almost as if you were still in the tournament office, but you were across the country keeping track of things. Yeah. The OC has played a pretty significant role, I think, in your life and your family and your career. And, to have you as a part of the department and this bracket, certainly much appreciated. Any thoughts there on how easy the decision was to join us, even though it was us, but to be a part of this and relive some of that history and some of the great moments?
Well, I need to say hello to all my Central New York bowling peeps and really to all the people that participated in this bracket challenge. It was a lot of fun, a lot of history. My first experience like Bob was saying, was with the ABC tournament, 1999. The tournament came to Syracuse. Not sure if either Aaron or Matt was born during that time, but I'm still kicking around. And it was, I would have to say, like, my career bowling highlight was actually being present and covering Dick Weber getting, going over the 100,000 pin milestone. So to meet him, somebody like Joe Norris, again, just the historical Now looking back in 1999, I just was like, just learning about the tournament and the game itself, and then just to meet these icons of the tournament itself was pretty remarkable. So I've learned so much, and I learned so much from you guys. So I did the women's championship, very much of a different vibe, women's and the Open Championship, and that's not a knock on either one of them. They just are meaningful to their participants in their own special way. And like you said, with I advanced Brenda a lot. I think that women competing in the Open Championships are held to a little bit more of a pressure standard to prove themselves. So I think that, that's been something that I've admired, to watch a lot of the ladies. I've never done the Open Championship except for just being on the lanes and being what did we do? We all bowled together, but it wasn't, our scores didn't count, which maybe took the pressure off, but that was kind of fun.
You guys did have the experience of kind of making a run at the lead unofficially, right? So there's the thrill of the Open Championships. You got to march out, you had the jerseys, you did the whole thing, and you were making a run at the number. So that had to be pretty awesome, don't you say?
It really was. It really was. So to have that feeling as a participant really put things in perspective as a member of the PR staff, as far as what people are feeling when they're making a run at the championship. And that's what blows my mind about what Mento Produce did, and just that they were just so invested in making this happen. And I know it's been a dream for that particular team to make it happen, and they did. And I can't tell you how excited the people around here have been. And that's just something they're always going to have for the rest of their careers. They're always going to be Eagle winners and Open Championship champions. So that was pretty cool.
Before we roll into our other quadrant, our tournament first section, I will say that coming up next month, shameless plug for the Inside the OC podcast, we will visit with some of our defending champions who now will have to wait until 2021 to put those titles on the line. I did talk to Derek Magno this week, and while he's back at work now doing his thing, we're going to talk to one of the team members, and we'll talk to a handful of our defending champs to get their thoughts on what's happening in 2020 and having to wait now until next year to put those titles on the line. But going back to what you said earlier about the women at the Open Championships, certainly a huge part of the event, going back to 1994 now. At one point in the recent past, 25% of the participation, and that number steadily climbing. I imagine considerably higher now, and an awesome opportunity to see the difference between the two events. As you noted, certainly a different competitive environment and just a different feel.
Yes.
But we did include some of the ladies in our OC Bracket Challenge, both for winning some titles early on. Rayetta Dominguez, the very first woman to win a title. It was the booster team event back in 1994. Wendy McPherson in the mix as well. But in our tournament first quadrant, among them, the first 300 by a woman and the first 800 by a woman. Maybe not so fair. They had to go up against each other in the first round there. But Fran, any thoughts? The tournament first, again, going back to 1901, an incredible history. And the fact that some of these things took as long as they did to happen is just mind-blowing with the number of bowlers that participate each year. And we're well over probably 650,000 teams since 1901. Millions of bowlers. It took all the way until 1977 for us to see the first 800. I find that shocking still. But walk us through this section of the bracket a little bit and some of your thought process along the way.
Yeah, I mean, I take pride in my only loss, quote unquote, was the first round with the first 300 over 800. I just went with the perfect game at 1913. I mean, the game was a completely different animal at that time. And it just was, I think that was a little bit more significant, but obviously that was not how the vote went. So I get, again, that's another one. I can concede that, because the first 800 is a big deal. That it took so long, like you mentioned, that it happened is probably the reason that it moved on, and as well as, the significance of doing it over 3 games, or I'm sorry, just 3 events, or help me out. What?
Right, three games compared to 1.
3 games. Okay, there you go. Thank you. I'm getting all messed up, because I'm still going back to what you said about 120 years, and that Pollard's bowl record is just unbelievable to me. That is. Do you guys think that that's something that'll ever be broken, or?
Well, I will say first that I do also get a little tongue-tied around Aaron Smith, so totally understandable there. And as far as the record, I think all the numbers eventually, probably, maybe, will very decisive. Will get broken. I think if any of them are going to get topped, and we've seen some very close calls in recent years, I think team all events might be the next one to go.
Okay. All right. Well, hopefully we'll all be around to be able to see something that fabulous. And obviously you guys have seen enough. Just all of these events and all of these matchups are just very. I don't think you can go wrong with any of the winners, which is why I think Mcneil, advanced in 2 categories, as well as Lillard, because they're just phenomenal people, phenomenal bowlers, and what they accomplished is incredible. On this stage that people just dream of, getting a 200 game, let alone doing the things that they were able to do. So as far as the tournament first, my bracket played out pretty much as I had suspected that it would. Again, Matt winning that bracket is a no-brainer. That he's won 3 all events titles. It was nice to do a little research and find out more about all of these people, especially him. And that just, it was mind blowing what he's been able to accomplish, and the level of success. And, so it will be interesting who the overall winner is. It really is. It does boil down to, even in that last 4, it was Lillard against Mcneil.
Two Titans at the event for sure.
Very much so.
Some interesting choices, I think, along the way in this bracket too. But Aaron Smith, any thoughts or questions for Fran as we roll through this one?
I think I would agree with you, Fran, that this particular side of the bracket, or quadrant of the bracket, kind of played out how I thought. Probably the toughest one for me was 100,000 pins versus 3 800s. What was your determining factor in that one?
I mean, it just the consistency that was required for 800. First, getting to 800. I mean, that's phenomenal. And then doing it in 3 consecutive years. These are just rare events. Not that 100,000 pins isn't rare, but that was obviously going to happen for somebody at somewhere down the road, just because of their longevity, their skill, and how long the tournament's been going. I mean, it's kind of a indicator that what Matt was able to accomplish is just above and beyond that 100,000 pin fall, in my opinion.
Well, I struggled with that one as well, only for the reason that the 2 eras are so different at the Open Championships.
That's true.
The first 200,000 pins, Bill Dorman, he did it starting in 1908, and he bowled 71 consecutive events. He did it with 10 years left in his career. So the era of 1908 to 1961 versus the current situation and equipment and lane conditions and such, that was the determining factor for me to be able to average what Bill did for that many years to get there when he did. Now 100,000 now versus 3 800s, totally different conversation. And that was certainly one of the tougher ones, I think, and many would agree as well.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, for me, I didn't think it was that much of a difficult decision. Again, this is where you get tripped up, especially when you're going back to an event that's been around for over 100 years, the eras. And I think that that's what people need to factor in. And, I just think that the 3/800s is just something that it's just too rare. It's too rare. So those were my feelings. And I think that we have the right final two. And I am very eager to find out who actually, comes out on top. This is going to be really interesting.
Well, with that perfect segue, again, you have to choose between
you didn't do this.
The Bill Lillard and the 23-26. What's your choice and why in that final matchup?
Well, I'm going with Lillard. That's who I voted for. You can say tradition, sentimental favorite, or whatever. I just think that what his body of work and what he was able to accomplish at such a huge event. And you got to remember too, after each year, there was probably more pressure on this individual, more people watching, more people paying attention. And some people aren't able to do that. And he did that for, 68 years, you said? Mm-hmm. Yep. And averaged almost 200 and won titles. And, just sounds like, he's going on the Mount Rushmore of Open Championship individuals. So that's who got my vote, and that's why.
All right. Well, more importantly, we learned some things along the way. We got to catch up and talk a few times. We had fun, and we got to celebrate the great history of this event. Definitely a box of Glazed and Confused coming your way, Fran, from downtown Syracuse. We appreciate all of your efforts during this process.
There you go. You guys look great. I appreciate all your hard work, and just hang in there.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Thanks for everything, and keep an eye out. Listen, you can follow along the show and find out who the overall winner is here. We're going to celebrate in just a few minutes. We got one more quadrant to go, and then we will have that final decision. Fran, thank you once again very much.
Thanks for all your hard work.
As well.
Thanks for having me.
We'll talk to you soon. Thanks.
All right. Bye-bye.
Aaron Smith, always a pleasure to chat with Fran and hear some of her great insight and different perspective. She kept us on our toes in 2018. I hope we get to go back to Syracuse again soon, just not just for the pizza, but for the company as well.
Yeah, that was definitely a fun year. Glad we got to do that with Fran. Glad I finally got to actually meet her since I missed out in 2011. She had introduced herself, though, bowling the women's championships once or twice. So, our paths had crossed through that and through email before, but getting to work with her was definitely a treat. Actually, the whole team in 2018 was pretty awesome. A lot of fun, a lot of laughs in that downstairs office. But we're already past the hour point now, so we gotta get to the next guy. We gotta get to the final quadrant here, so we can announce this winner.
All right, well, let's do that, and we'll bring him in. USBC Hall of Famer, member of the 100,000 Pin Club, 64 tournament appearances, 3 Eagles, and he had one of the toughest discussions, I think, coming up here because he had to choose in many regards between some of his best friends from over the years in bowling and in life. Bob Hart, again, USBC Hall of Famer. Welcome back to the Inside the OC podcast.
Thank you, Matt. Aaron, nice to see you both again. I appreciate you having me on the show. I've been watching it here at home, and I'm very impressed with some of the insights that the other people that you've had on the show today had. Fran was very interesting, and of course, she's always done a good job. She was there at USBC also.
Well, these are the experts. You guys are the experts. We're just holding it all together here and producing the show. But thank you for joining us. Let's get right to it. The head-to-head matchups. Again, these are gentlemen and ladies that you've bowled against and experienced competition with for many years in some cases, going all the way back to the 1950s, even if not before that. But some tough choices here. Let's give them the matchups, Aaron, as we'll relive some of the excitement in this section of the bracket. Very first one, tough to choose from right off the bat. 9 titles on the Open Championships lanes versus 8, and a slew of other accolades. Nelson Burton Jr., Bill Lillard Sr., and then 2 gentlemen who each won 4 titles in a single year. Bill Lillard was the other person to do that. So Ed Lebansky and Mike Newman. Again, 2 different eras we had to compare there, the 1950s versus the 1990 event. And then we get to 2 of our ladies. Rhea Dominguez, we mentioned, the first to win a title overall, a booster team title, versus Wendy McPherson, who won a regular singles title in 2006. So some good discussion there. And then finally, the 2 gentlemen in history who each have won titles in 3 consecutive years. One in the 1960s, Les Zykes, and Anthony Lacaze, who did it just a few years ago. Bob, let's roll from the top down and get some of your thoughts. And I know, again, this first one had to be very tough for you, choosing between 2 guys you probably spent a lot of time with.
Actually, that was very difficult. Both have tremendous records. I've known both for many, many years. And, of course, Bill was a friend of mine also. Nelson did have 9 titles. They were all in the classic division. Bill had 8, and 2 of his were in the classic division. And that was really a close one for me. One thing about the classic division, the first 9 games that you bowled in the Open, top 6 in the team event qualified for an additional roll-off, which gave 5 additional teams a second chance at a team championship. So I thought that was a little bit of an edge. I did, like I say, very, very close back and forth. Bill had two classic team titles also, but he had 2 individual titles, and Nelson had, of course, the Masters. I picked Bill Lillard. But like I say, there were no losers there. They were both winners, and I picked Bill Lillard by a very, very small margin. That was a real tough one.
All right. Well, I think at least for me personally, again, I haven't been shy about my thoughts on knowing Bill and his family and just the things that he accomplished at the OC. Not that, again, Bo wasn't a terrific competitor as well, but the OC specifically, Bill Lillard was going to go all the way for me anyway. So I totally agree with you there. And then moving on, again, Ed Lebansky, somebody you probably spent some time with. And Mike Newman, somebody who was arguably the greatest of our generation, and then kind of disappeared later on after that 1990 event too. But thoughts on that one?
Well, actually, I bowled on the same team. Eddie Lebansky bowled on my Global Beer team in Detroit. Therefore, a very good friend. It's a different era. Eddie against Mike, both winning 4 titles in the same year. I there again thought it was a very close decision. Eddie won 2 of his 4 were individual titles, and Mike had 1 of his individual titles. So it was he had team all events. Eddie had singles, doubles, all events, and a team title. So having 3 titles individually against 2 titles individually, I chose Ed Lebansky.
All right. Now, in our next one, I think it probably wasn't as much of a decision for most folks, Aaron, and you might agree. We certainly want to give some love to Rhea Dominguez being the first lady, the trailblazer, but what Wendy McPherson did in 2006 with the 300 and the 812 and just not even taking into account the time in her life and some of the emotional things that she was working through. But that performance, pretty significant. Aaron, any thoughts there before we let Bob take a stab at it?
Well, needless to say, they're both fantastic performances. Rayetta, of course, was in a lesser division than Wendy participated in. For that reason, I gave the edge to Wendy for her 800 series and the difference in the divisions.
I would agree with Bob on that one. Yeah, that was a tough draw for Rayetta, but definitely a big moment in tournament history. 94 was special for two reasons, since that was also the first year women were allowed to bowl the then ABC tournament. So to come out the first year and win, pretty awesome. But I know you had Wendy on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, Matt, and yeah, hearing the story, knowing she hadn't picked up a bowling ball too much before then and had some family things going on, be it I think the second to the last day of the event, to go out and take over 8-12, pretty unbelievable. So I was I picked Wendy in that situation as well.
All right, and rightfully so. And then it gets a little bit tougher, I think, Bob. Moving on, maybe not this first match, but certainly later in this quadrant. But only two gentlemen in tournament history have won in 3 consecutive years. One of them, again, you've probably competed with and against over the decades. Les Sykes going back to the 1960s, and then Anthony Lacoste, both of them coming from the same general area, the Chicagoland area as well. So a pretty neat connection there. But, of course, just taking into account those particular years where they had the 3 titles. Bob, what were your thoughts here, and who advanced for you?
Well, again, I think they're all are pretty close. I looked at the overall records of the two, possibly beyond the results that we were given. I felt that Les' overall performances was slightly better than Anthony's. And for that reason, I gave Les Sykes the nod.
All right. Well, Les able to roll all the way through to almost the end of this section, but it was Les and Bill. And that one, again, two of the biggest names at the Open Championships. They have competed for over 130 years. Putting those stats together was pretty awesome. Well over 200,000 pins knocked over, and just a handful of titles, 14 titles between them. Very, very close in the votes as well. Bill had the edge in pinfall and titles in years, but it really could have gone either way. Bob?
And again, there you had two great bowlers. They were both personal friends of mine. I bowled against both of them. As you said, Bill had 2 additional titles over Les. He also, in total pins, with 1 year to go, Les had 67 years at this time, and Bill had 68. With 1 year less, Les Sykes was 900 and some pins behind Bill Lillard's total pinfall. So with those 2 reasons, I gave Bill Lillard the nod again and moved him into the finals.
Well, Aaron, I don't think anybody is going to argue the fact that Bill Lillard won this quadrant of the bracket. But moving on to the overall semifinals, it was Lillard against the first bowler, or the first to 3 800s. So that was a little bit of a tougher decision for some folks, I think. Again, you're choosing between a person and an amazing career and an accomplishment that's just potentially never going to be matched. So any thoughts on that one, Aaron?
Yeah, I had a couple thoughts on that one, and maybe with outside the box a little bit. First of all, I am personally involved have been with Bill and his family, knew them well, knew what type of a person he was. I also am a good friend of Matt Mcneil. I worked with him. They're both class guys. They have performed with humility, and I feel that a lifetime career performance by Bill Lillard is part of the OC history and will remain part of the history forever. I also feel that Matt Mcneil is probably going to, I feel certain he is going to add to his legend as he goes along. He has a lot of years to go. I'm going to give him the advantage on all those years. I think his performance over the years is going to be fantastic, but I picked Bill Lillard on his lifetime performance and his humility in winning and in his record overall. I gave the choice to Bill Lillard, Sr.
Aaron, I think you might agree that Bob Hart could have potentially been in this section as well. And one of the fondest memories I think that we'll have is Bob's 100,000 pin celebration in Reno and the after party. We talked about it when he was on with us on his episode of Inside the OC. But the fans that turned out and the celebration afterwards was pretty memorable. You were going to try to wear that shirt today, but the quarantine wait maybe didn't let that happen.
Well, that was definitely the highlight of my bowling career, and I think the Hall of Fame nod should go to Bill and Barb Chrisman, who threw a fantastic party and a dinner for about 90 to 100 people after my 100,000 pin evening. And I'd like to also throw out a personal thought to my good friend Jamie Brooks, who is a little disappointed like I am. I'm disappointed that I'm not getting my 65-year award this year due to the virus. And I'm sure Jamie is a little disappointed. He was going to hit 100,000 pins this year also. He only needs to show up, and we're certainly going to be pulling for Jamie on that matter.
Those are definitely going to be two super fun moments once we get to them, obviously, in a few more months once we get into 2021. But the party in 2014 was certainly something special, definitely a day. As Matt said, I still got one of the shirts, but I bulked up. I'll call it bulking up since then, so it might be a little too tight on me. But yeah, that was definitely a special night. Bob, I appreciated you on the mic, though, that night. You were you weren't giving anyone a free pass, so we appreciated that. You were fun to listen to. It was fun to hear the folks tell the stories about you. That really was the best part, was just all these folks we've grown to know in the industry and just how high they hold you and revere you as not only a competitor, but just as an amazing person. So just to be part of that and to know that we were going to have that party was certainly something that's very high on my list of Open Championships memories. And I was just there. I just turned the cameras on. So I appreciate you guys taking me in for that and let me be a part of that big moment for you as well.
Well, thank you very much for those kind remarks, Aaron. I certainly appreciate it. I might add that was another advantage of the center aisle. Walking down that center aisle, the people that walk down that center aisle for a spatial award are very appreciative of the center aisle being there. So, again, thank you. I am very, very moved by your nice remarks. Thank you.
Bob, we absolutely appreciate all of your insight along the way through this bracket. Again, you lived many of these moments and shared the stage with many of these competitors. You mentioned earlier your thoughts on the legacy of Bill Lillard, and in your vote, it was Lillard over Mcneil, 23-26. Again, Mcneil has a long way to go in his career, and he's going to do some great things, we're sure. Again, what you were able to bring to this bracket challenge, we certainly appreciate it. We're looking very much forward to celebrating number 65 with you in Las Vegas in 2021. And I know we'll be in touch many times in the months to follow, get those teams registered, and we'll get that date ready for you. And we look forward to celebrating another milestone, and perhaps we'll have you on for the next OC Bracket Challenge as well.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it, Matt. And I do appreciate you having me on this show. I have enjoyed it. I brought back a lot of memories. Some of those teams brought back a lot of friendships and things that had happened over the years through bowling. It's made my life so enjoyable. So, again, thank you, Aaron, everybody that's been involved in putting this show together. I think it was a great idea, and it's certainly been something under the conditions we're living in today. It was very enjoyable. So, again, thank you very much.
Well, thank you for the kind words, sir. It is Bob Hart, the ambassador, the champion, the Hall of Famer, 65 years coming up in 2021. Bob, thanks again. We'll look forward to talking to you soon. And now, Aaron Smith, it's nearly time to reveal the winner of the 2020 OC Bracket Challenge. We do have a special guest. We're going to try something new for the first time here on the Inside the OC podcast. We don't have any video to go with this, but we do have this gentleman in the queue ready to talk to us again. Our final match is down to the 23-26 all events record of Matt Mcneil back in 2010 against the amazing legacy of Bill Lillard. But McNeil's performances in the recent decade earned him a couple places in this bracket, a two-time semifinalist, also going in for his being the first with 3 800s. Again, we know he's not done performing on the OC stage, but to make 2 of the 4 spots have a 50% chance of winning this whole entire thing, we're going to bring him in. Hopefully, if things are cooperative here, we're going to talk to Matt Mcneil a little bit about the OC bracket, and then we're going to reveal the winner and get some thoughts from Mr. Mcneil just about the whole thing and how it turned out.
All right. Sounds good. So, Mr. Mcneil, we'll see if we got him right here. Matthew.
Hey, guys. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
All right.
Looking better than ever.
I was going to say, enjoy your haircut.
Well, my mom always said I had a great face for radio.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us on today's episode. Of course, as you know, this is the culmination of 6 weeks of photos and graphics and voting and descriptions and things to celebrate almost 120 years of Open Championships history. No matter what, it was just a great chance to reflect on some of those performances, and you had a hand in quite a few. The last 10 years for you at the Open Championships have been head-turning, to say the least, and you got so much love out there in the voting for those numbers and the things that you've accomplished. Just tell us about your experience just watching this unfold, initially seeing the bracket, seeing that you were going to be coming from opposite ends of it for your performances, and then to make it not only once but twice into the semifinals and then into the final. That had to feel pretty good knowing that you're still almost 60 years from being done with your career based on the longevity of some of our champions.
Overwhelmingly humbling, to be honest with you. It's just, especially like Mr. Hart said, during these, I think everybody's had a pretty rough go of it with this whole COVID thing. And this was just a really great beacon of positivity, and especially positivity on social media and within our daily lives. And so to look back at all the great history and the great teams and the great accomplishments and all the great moments that this tournament has produced, I think it's just been a blast the last few weeks, as you said, Matt. And I just humbled to be a part of it, a small part of it. Obviously, Lord willing, I'll be able to lace up my shoes for many, many more years, as I plan to do. But I think overwhelmingly humbling to be a part of this prestigious tournament and to be in the circles of bowlers that I was named with, and I mean, my gosh, I was against center aisle. I mean, I think center aisle is like one of the most, you're going up against center aisle. Like I didn't think my chances were all that good. That's one of the most prestigious and one of those moments you always look forward to as a competitor, and it's the ultimate reward to walk down that aisle solo or with your team or with your doubles partner to receive an eagle the following year. And it's a pretty quick walk, but it's probably about an 8-second walk, but you'll remember that moment and cherish it for the rest of your life.
Well, that actually brings up a great bonus question as well, that about center aisle. Of course, as the defending champion, you get to come down the aisle with all eyes on you. You Hulk Hogan did one year, made a grand entrance, made it real special. Of course, you never know if that's going to be the only time or the last time. And again, center aisle being the location, the backdrop for so many great ceremonies and moments, even weddings at the Open Championships over the years. And to go up against Center Isle, as you said, in the semifinals, your performance was determined to be more significant. Just let that sink in. More significant than Center Isle, of which every bowler since 1954 has walked down to the lanes, the goosebumps, the butterflies, like all the things, the feelings that come with it. The voters determined that Matt McNeil's 23-26 was more significant. It's you mentioned it very briefly there, but wow.
Yeah, it's just humbling. It's very humbling to have the respect of your peers, and I think that's something that any accomplished player, if you ask them one of their driving forces in their careers through all the hours of dedication and practice and sacrifice that they've made, that's one of the things that they've always wanted, is the admiration of their peers, the people that they looked up to, the people that inspired them, the people that they respected. And to get the nods from so many greats that I've looked up to my entire life and my entire career, and then also just overwhelmingly from my family and my friends, it's really, really special. And when you look at the people who vote, there's a lot of pretty amazing bowlers that are out there voting, and just to see them chime in is pretty cool. So it's very, very humbling. And if I didn't ever vote in this thing, for myself or against myself. But if I would have voted, I probably would have voted for Center Isle. I don't think any one bowler is bigger than an institution of the tournament. But that's my own personal feelings, but still very humbled.
Now, Matt, before you shot that 23-26, you were just a young kid in a green shirt showing up to the tournament. Had some previous success a year or two before that. But since then, since that moment, you have essentially turned into a tournament celebrity. What's it been like kind of transforming from just being a guy who's there bowling the event to someone who, you almost can't walk 5 feet without someone recognizing you, knowing you, wanting to shake your hand, take a photo, even maybe get some advice. You did that for a full year working the showcase lanes as well. Just what's that kind of transformation been like for you, just to become a revered figure in this event, like so many people we've talked about and talked to today?
Aaron, it's absolutely an honor. It's an honor and a privilege, and I take it really seriously, because with great privilege comes great responsibility. And so at any time, even if I'm sitting in the stands just trying to do my thing, and somebody comes up and want a photo or anything, or even a tip or something like that, I always feel entirely I want to give my time to them. And it's all part of that experience, because I was at one point in time, we've all been in those shoes, where I remember I bowled in 2009 with Bob Learn Jr. and Ricky Sajak and Steve Wilson and a couple other guys, and I was kind of starstruck. And one year Dave Davis was on my squad, and the legend, and so I was the guy coming up to them, shaking their hands, asking for a photo, asking them to sign something. So to be able to turn around and give back and try to make somebody's tournament experience a little better, I love it. I'm very honored to be able to do that.
Now, Matt, before you were the breakout player of the 2010s at the Open Championships, you really appreciated the history of the event. We had talks well before that, between 2007 when you really made a run in singles up until the all events performance. You appreciated the event and all that came with it, the Center Isle, the Eagle. You grew up in Minnesota, where those guys taught you to respect the prestige and the tradition. And now, again, being humble and being a part of all this, and still a long way to go, and a lot of accolades coming your way. To be going up against the final here against Bill Lillard, again, arguably the most accomplished player on the tournament lanes. As far as the historian in you, then you collect memorabilia and you respect the game in a way that many would not be surprised about, but impressed with even. But win or lose, can you just talk about the history of the event, the tradition, and Bill Lillard and being up in that matchup. And of course, that's given you some things to aim for in your career. But the record score and Lillard in the final, win or lose, any thoughts on that?
Well, Mr. Lillard's career, his body of work, I think, is second. It's obviously second to none, and I won't be surprised in the least if he gets plenty more votes than I do on this deal. I completely have the utmost respect for everything that Mr. Lillard has accomplished on and off the lanes. Just a great man, a great ambassador for the sport, and a great institution almost, if you will, to the Open Championships. I mean, my goodness, you look at 68 years and you look at the career pinfall and you look at 8 Eagles. And, I'm blessed to have 4 right now. And I'm sitting here scratching my head every year thinking it's like climbing Mount Everest just to get one more, much less 4, to ever get on that plane with Mr. Lillard. So to be mentioned in the same breath as such a great man is incredibly humbling. I don't think there's any other way to put it. It's just incredibly humbling to be mentioned in the same company as the most accomplished bowler, at least in my perspective, in the Open Championships.
Now, Matt, 2015 was the year Bill got to the record score, his 68th year. 2015 was a pretty special year for you as well. We also had Still Thiel reach 70, who's from your area in Minnesota. When you kind of look back at that tournament, those are the 3, things that really stick out. Once again, kind of in a similar fashion, just to have a big year in the same venue as Bill Lillard, broke Joe Norris's record. Still Thiel got 7 years. Does that leave, a little El Paso and that 2015 event, does that, hold a special place for you, knowing that all that kind of transpired in the same place?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think recollecting on 2015 in El Paso, where, becoming the only bowler to win 3 all events Eagles, that was, that's probably I think the single-handedly greatest accomplishment that I've been able to have. I mean, that trumps the 800s and that trumps the all event score in my mind. Just the 3 all events Eagles, 4 people have had 2 and I'm the only one to have 3. And to be able to do that in that arena where Mr. Lillard and Mr. Thiel also made history as well, I think that just speaks to the level that this tournament is on and how much history gets made at this tournament and what it means to be a part of it. And I think, I kind of joked around. I've joked around with you guys in the past that, I think they, if I got a walker and a straw and a ramp, somehow I'm going to keep bowling this tournament, or something like that. And I can push the ball off the ramp with the straw off my chin or something like that. I mean, it's just this event's always going to be near and dear to me. And it's such a great event just due to exactly what you just talked about, Aaron, is all the amazing moments that occur on off the lanes. I mean, I think that's one of the better parts about the tournament too, is the camaraderie, getting to see your friends, getting to have, going out for dinner or, after you get done bowling or, sitting around. I remember, in 2012, my first year at the Lakers, we sat around in the parking.
Matt, we might have lost you there.
All right. Well, Matt did mention some reception troubles. I believe he's traveling through Florida. Oh, there he is. Maybe. All right.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now. There you are.
All right. I'm sorry. We had a technical difficulty here on my end. I apologize.
No worries, sir.
I guess just to wrap it up, wrap that story up was, I think that event, that venue was created a lot of great moments and a lot of great history that's going to carry on in this amazing event. That becomes a part of everybody's life. Everybody talks about when are you bowling nationals. They make plans around it. Everybody makes, usually some fun activity plans around it. There's always lots to do in the host cities. So it becomes a part of your life, and it becomes near and dear to you.
Well, Matt, we certainly appreciate all you've done for the history of the Open Championships. Amazing performances over the last decade. Many more to come. We're certain you could probably have a Matt Mcneil bracket alone and pick the best moments of Matt Mcneil's career. There's so many. And again, we look forward to celebrating 100,000 with you and 65 years and all that good stuff down the road. But more than anything, thanks for being a great ambassador and serving the sport in the way that you do. We look forward to seeing you on the lanes again in 2021 as you're trying to put together the next dream team, perhaps, or go for that 4th All Events Eagle. We'll look forward to sharing all the details with the folks at home. Thanks for joining us today. We're going to let you get back to your travels, and then we're going to reveal the overall winner here of the 2020 OC Bracket Challenge. Thanks again, Matt.
Hey, thanks, guys, for everything. Take care.
All right, Aaron Smith. It's coming down to the moment. I don't want to say anticlimactic. We've had some great thoughts and things today. And I do just want to share these 2 items we talked about earlier from 2 of my favorite guys at the Open Championships. You talked about memorabilia and autographs, and here's one. Matt mentioned, there it is, that 2012 event, the glasses that he wore in Baton Rouge to win 2 Eagles. And there we are. So it's part of the collection now, and the autograph and everything, and always celebrating part of tournament history. And again, the legacy of Mcneil will go on for decades, I'm sure. And a cherished item in the collection, the Bill Lillard record-breaking Bowler's Journal, autographed 124,087 is his career pinfall total. And again, it was these 2 gentlemen and their performances that made the final round of our bracket here. The opportunity to spend time with Bill and Dorothy over the years for all of the milestones from 60 to 65 to the pinfall record. Great memories for us. And someday, again, we'll talk already a little bit as special about Mcneil and what he's done. But Aaron, any thoughts before we reveal the winner? Again, 23-26 record total against Bill Lillard. Wow, what a choice.
Yeah, it's, we kind of talked about this throughout the course of the show, and everyone's kind of gone with Lillard. I'm in the same boat as that. I think, Bill's longevity, his consistent record, finishing with, to answer Bob's question from earlier, 196 average lifetime for 68 years, 124,087 pins, 8 titles. Just kind of all of it, really resonates for me. I've known Matt Mcneil now since 2013 was the first time I actually got to meet him. But he's definitely a close friend and someone I always appreciate getting the chance to talk to, like we just did there. So I agree with everything you said. He's got 55 years to catch up. For me, it's Lillard, but Mcneil certainly, as you said, is going to have his own bracket one day. He's going to be a Hall of Famer one day. But he's younger than both of us, so he's got some time certainly to continue to wrap up those accolades. But the greatest moment of my bowling career was watching Bill Lillard strike to get the record. Feeling a little emotional just thinking about it right now. That's how big it was for me, and just being able to be in that moment was something incredible. So for me, that's why that's my pick. What about you, good sir?
Well, I haven't been shy about it along the way. Again, some amazing things and people throughout the bracket has been phenomenal just to relive some of these things and just look up some of the history. But it's hard to argue against the man who only 3 bowlers have bowled more years than him. Nobody has more pinfall, and only one person has one more win than he does. So it's only fitting that Bill Lillard is the 2020 OC Bracket Challenge champion. And we do have some footage of that day in El Paso in 2015 to signify and celebrate this win and this moment. Of course, Aaron's wearing the 2015 lane monitor uniform, and I have a 2015 El Paso Strike shirt on as well. What a year, not just for Lillard. We mentioned Mcneil and some of the great things that happened on that stage, but this is a moment, as you said, number one in your books.
And there it is.
And there it is. So unbelievable. What a culmination. What an ending to celebrating all these weeks of Open Championships and just the memories, the cities, the accomplishments. And we appreciate all of the voters and all of the folks along the way who helped us, the experts who gave the great insight that maybe helped the voters, educationally or just to entertain them along the way. We couldn't have done it without all the folks, the hard work. Of course, Daniel Ferris, some hard work early in the process as well. Aaron, thank you for helping this bracket move on. And, of course, for today's show. Folks, share your thoughts in the comments section below and let us know, how you feel about how things turned out. Again, Bill Lillard wins the 2020 OC Bracket Challenge, voted by the fans of the OC and the sport as the most significant person in Open Championships history, going back to 1901. He has accomplished more than most, and certainly deserves the honor of being on the final rung on that bracket. Aaron, before we get going, any final thoughts?
No. Congratulations to you on a great job, and all the panelists, Daniel as well. I know this was definitely a labor of love, and as you mentioned, could easily go 64 or 512 moments. So as our resident historian and someone who's not only loves the Open Championships but someone who's taught me so much about it, I just appreciate your hard work, your hard efforts in this particular event. And like I said, I love me some Maddie Mcneil, but Bill was the right choice in my book, and glad to see him get the recognition he deserves for being one of the greatest of all time.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate those kind words. And you're right, Mcneil will have his shot and his glory continued over the years. Perhaps we'll move on and put together some more votes. Some of the moments that didn't make this initial bracket, we can put them out there. I think folks really enjoyed looking at the graphics and getting to choose between the two things. We'll do the Mcneil bracket. I think we can have some fun with this as we count down the days until the 2021 Open Championships in Las Vegas. Wow, to see this come to an end, kind of bittersweet, but looking forward to the next one. And again, we appreciate all the folks who helped along the way, all those who voted. Keep turning in every week. Every Thursday, the OC podcast will continue inside the OC. Next week, we'll pick it up with three-time Eagle winner Lenny Boris Jr. How about that? And then we'll get into our Champions Month, where we talk to some of our defending champions. So keep an eye out for the schedule there. Aaron Smith still will be on the air weekly for the PWBA podcast and a lot of other great content coming up on Bold TV. There's actually some coming up in about 15 minutes, so just might as well stick around on Bold TV and see what's happening next. Jason Thomas behind the scenes doing some good work as well. So looking forward to not only this podcast continuing until we see each other again, but all the other ones as well. Aaron Smith, once again, very good job today. Appreciate all the efforts behind the scenes, getting all the things organized out there. Thank you to our special guest today, Dwayne Hagen, OC Tournament Director, Bob Johnson from Bowlers Journal International, Fran Piraino from Syracuse, bowling writer, bowling historian, and former co-worker of ours. Of course, the Usbc Hall of Famer, Bob Hart, and Matt Mcneil, four-time Eagle winner, and as you said, future Usbc Hall of Famer. And Doug Shellum, can't forget him. Didn't make the show today, but was a very big part of this process as well. And folks, we are done. We're beat. That's it. OC Bracket Challenge that is a wrap. Thanks for tuning in, folks. That is the news for now. We'll see you on the links.